So, Dr. Dwivedi, please, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I have been very fortunate to have known Professor Srivastava for the last 3-4 years, and we got together over a project here in Canada that was called Sahyog. It was started because the High Commissioner of India, Mr. Ajay Bisaria, called us about this issue of suicides among Indian students studying in Canada. And we have created a number of webinars, I believe 4 to 5, thanks to Professor Srivastava, to help the students here with this particular problem. We are very happy as a trust and foundation to help with this program, to help with the problem of depression, suicide in Indian students. You know, there's a saying by Sir Edmund Burke, and he says that evil happens when good people do nothing. And in the Gita, it says we should all do our duty. So this is a social evil of depression and suicide. If we can recognize the issues and the problems, we have a duty to intervene. And thanks to Professor Srivastava, we are able to do this. So I'm really happy to participate in this, and I'll be learning from the esteemed faculty along with the rest of you. Let me just take a minute to introduce the people on our board. In Canada, I'm very fortunate to have an outstanding board, and I will start with our Vice President and Secretary, Mr. Vinod Dargan, our Treasurer, Mr. Dominic Talarico, Professor Y.P. Chobe, Yugin Prasad Chobe is one director, Professor Dr. Rajesh Tyagi, another of our directors, Mr. Kumar Sanmuthu Krishnan, Marc-Olivier Jossom, and Justin Léveillé. In India, we are extremely fortunate to have the Freedom from Poverty Foundation Trust. Our vice president is Mr. Hemant Dixit. Professor V.D. Mishra is our secretary, and we have directors, Professor C.M. Pandey, Professor Mukesh Tripathi, and Akshat Mishra, and also Professor Chobe are all directors of the trust. It is only because of the work of all these people that we are really able to do any good in society. And I'm again very grateful for the opportunity to be involved in this project. And I'm really fortunate that I've got an excellent team working to help make it happen. A great big thank you to all of the esteemed faculty who has joined us to make this event possible. And thanks to all of you for joining us. And thank you. Dr. Saab, over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dwivedi. In fact, it's other way around. When you asked me to that we need to do something, and when I went to Lucknow, the enthusiasm of team, though I belong to Lucknow and nearby place, and I know the culture, मैं वहाँ पला बड़ा हूँ और but this time meeting Dr. Pandey, Dr. Mishra, and Hemant Bhai was exciting, and people from my own family, Manishank and others, who readily joined me, and something happened as it happens in making of any, I would say, movement. So I see this as a great opportunity, and call upon everybody, everyone who is listening to me, their family members, their well-wishers. I call upon everybody to join us in this cause. We have a open knowledge sharing platform on social media where everyone is invited to join, express views, give suggestions, and we will be more enlightened towards this cause. Now, let me brief in a minute about what is the program that we have envisaged that we are. So in this program, we developed a package of education, training, and information, skill development, new courses, knowledge sharing, publications, books, opinions, setting up research projects for standardization of mental health screening and assessment, collaborating with universities and research institutions to develop, make use of artificial intelligence and machine learning to develop new instruments, new tools to help families, parents, and students to find out. So we have a whole spectrum of services to evolve our own database, understand suicide behavior in Indian culture, in different part of Indian culture. And I would cite an example that in Western country where we are sitting here, 90% people who die due to suicide carry a diagnosis of mental disorder. This is well-established data for last 30, 40 years. And you see any publication, any document, and you will find this. Whereas when we see the same data from India, that's not the case. More than half of people who attempt suicide in Asian countries, particularly in India, do not have a mental disorder. What does it tell us? It really tells us that there is something more happening in the mind. The society, the way of thinking, the concepts, the traditions, the economic pressure, peer pressure, and all kind of spiritual, social dynamics play a part which leads to a suicidal impulse. It's not only mental disorder, it's never alone the mental disorder. So we have to evolve our own concept of intervention, define whose role it is to do which kind of piece. The nature of psychotherapy, which works in European country, doesn't work in India. Though culture of individualization is growing in India, still it is very different. Best way to understand suicide is to listen to the young people who have attempted suicide. And I consider myself fortunate enough to have the opportunity of speaking to these people in not one or two, but hundreds and thousands in number in last about 40, 45 years career. And I can tell you with conviction that those who say that suicide is unavoidable are wrong. Suicide behavior is a preventable condition. We need to recognize its marker precursors and predict well in time, just like a heart attack. There is angina, there are signals, there is hypercholesteremia, there is risk due to genetic or family history. Exactly the same applies to mental health and mental disorders, and including suicide behavior. The boys who go into the college and universities, a section of them are at a higher risk. They are shouting and they are crying and they are telling us from top of their head that, look, I cannot obtain 95% and I'm about to kill myself. This is published in the newspapers day in and day out. But what do? Our silence speaks a lot. They get dejected. When you ask them, how was your family's response when you expressed suicidal ideas, you'll be surprised to know they are deeply disappointed. And it is this disappointment which pushes them to suicide. Not having opportunity to be heard, not having opportunity to find out options, alternatives, creative thinking, newer ways of solving the problem is highly frustrating for the young individuals, boys and girls. Doesn't matter they are innovative, they are, their brain functions differently. Still, they look forward to suggestions and connections. We have greater responsibility to perform. We need to understand our changing role. We need to look at this world from newer vision and not carry the baggage of last our age, that this factor was relevant 20 years back, so that may be relevant today. Expecting that, no, my boys should speak and they can speak, maybe it's not working. Maybe we need to sit with them and ask them, what do you think about your new college, new course? Do you really want to do that? Do you really want to go that side? There are a number of things, and I'm sure in this coming 4 days, a lot of experts will discuss. We have excellent faculties, say about 4 or 5 from King George's Medical University, Lucknow, 2 or 3 from All India Institute of New Delhi, PGI MR Chandigarh, Lokmanya Tilak Medical College, SAN, KEM Hospital, Mumbai, JSS University, Mysore. We have an excellent person in suicide research, Prakash Behere, who is a celebrated psychiatrist for doing excellent work in former suicide. He is one of our faculty, is currently sitting in Scotland and would be chairing the session in month of January. Very busy guy, but we have his support. Likewise, the mental health community working in India in the field of suicide, we do have support from them. I am myself a member of a section of suicidology World Psychiatric Association since last about 17 years, ever since it was formed. We have the message from President of World Psychiatric Association giving his expressing his thoughts, and we'll be displaying it in the program. We have connected with the Indo-Canadian Psychiatric Association, which is a very strong body in mental health in this country for joint program technology transfer and mutual collaboration. We have their message, and you will be hearing this when the program begins. So this is from my end. If there are any questions, suggestions, please, you're welcome. Dr. Dwivedi, are there anything that I can respond to? Are we now?
No, Dr. Sab, I think that's in a nutshell, it's very well stated. And again, I want to reiterate for those who joined a bit later that our board, both in Canada and in Lucknow, are very much in favor of this. And a very crucial point is, if we save even one life, our task is a huge success. And I think the important thing here is to have a conversation once we have some knowledge from the experts in the field. We've just recently, last week, have had a suicide where this person was deeply depressed, killed his wife and children, and then committed suicide. What drives me personally is we saw the bodies, my wife and I, of a couple of students in Montreal who had basically drove their car into a lake. And once you've seen the devastation that suicide causes, it touches you. It touches you, and we need to intervene. And again, a great big thank you to you for organizing all this. So thank you again.
Okay, so thank you very much, and we hope we can work the way you guys want us to work, or you have a vision and implement things. I'm sure I'll do everything possible that I can, and I think it is important to build a strong team. I also want to place on record here that there is a strong need to develop international wing of the same initiative, because suicide, self-harm, depression is very common in the population which immigrates. migration is one of the very high potential social stress, which is closely related to mental disorders. A lot of students who travel to Canada, US, UK, and so many other countries land up with a lot of mental health issues, may sometimes have to go back or discontinue their studies. I think a kind of mental health support organization or system, it's time we think in their direction and work with the foreign missions, our Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Maybe we may we need to be heard from that perspective, and we need to extend our help to those people who come to this country or any other country in hope to receive high education and land up with the severe depression here. So they are away from their families. There is no hope, no help available. Even to access the existing medical care, it is so complicated. When you ask back home a doctor, when they say, "Oh, how come he is not getting an appointment?" I mean, they have no idea that how difficult it is to get into the system. I think at least a leaflet should be given to them when they come, how to get into the medical system and how to approach medical help. Lack of basic information is sometimes killing, you know. So I think Dr. Devedi and Rajesh would like you to think on these directions, and your capacity and your social capital is so strong. We are proud of you and wish you good luck that the movement
you.
survives and moves forward, you know.
Correct. Yeah. Can I make one comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think I think Aapsi baat hui thi, we talked one time, when you put suicide word first and not the depression captures more attention, because many of them, they don't want to admit. That was one data point. Second data point that also comes from one of your webinars is, if they have already thought about suicide, it means already too late to catch them. So I think if more focus, I think we are already doing it. If we focus more saying about depression and anxiety, that's like earlier. So it's like prevention side. The result is all there. But if we say over on this side, more like the suicide prevention, we are doing suicide prevention. So something, it's more about rebranding and how we make them aware. So I think the more and more about, so we are talking about depression. We are talking about depression. We know these results in that. Or if we say the same thing, we are focusing on suicide prevention. We are half of them will say, "Oh no, we are not in that segment of people. We are just depressed, but we are not thinking that far." So I don't know that one. I think we had very brief conversation. I wanted to know more your thoughts on that part, like how we kind of rebrand, how we push it in that sense, so we capture all of that population and we can prevent that earlier, rather than they even go into that column. And how we'll present the wording of our seminars and all of those will matter. Yeah.
I think Rajesh, you have a valid point, and it is a semantic confusion in number of people's mind.
Yes.
There are different purposes of keeping the name in separate category. However, we definitely address a broad range of people.
Yes.
We are saying this webinar that we want to discuss suicide prevention because the problem is very hard hitting. We are precisely going to discuss the issue behind 13,000 students who died last year due to suicide. Believe me, these numbers are 5 to 6 times underreported. So that makes it 1 lakh minimum. Now, if you count the number of people who have attempted suicide, gone to the hospital, have been treated and saved, that is nearly 15 to 17 times of those people who have died. So we are talking about another 10 lakh people. So we are talking about 10, 15 lakh people of students who either have a high suicidality, have made an attempt, or we have responsibility to deal with the relatives of people who have young boys who have died. I mean, nobody has opened up, you don't even see the report in the media of parents of the student who has died due to suicide. And if you see the international research data, behind every successful suicide, there are at least 4 people left at high risk in the family. So the next person who is depressed or having a cardiac problem in the family or severe diabetes is the one who would develop severe depression and suicidality. So it is because of the nature and crucial pressing issue of suicidality that we want to talk about it in exclusivity. Having said that, we have committed to provide a website known as Defeat Depression. Down few months, this website will have entire resource to seek information, seek resource for awareness, find out how to approach and where to go for early intervention, etc., etc. Mental health issues are general as well as specific. There are high risk groups, so employees want their problem in a different way. The doctors want their depression to be handled in a different way. So I think we will take it up in due course during the discussion. May I welcome Dr. Agarwal. I see. Can you? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you, Amrish?
Professor A.K. Agrawal is a retired professor of psychiatry from King George's Medical University, a celebrated teacher and psychiatrist in our country, former president of Indian Psychiatric Society, and editor of Indian Journal of Psychiatry for 2 decades. I invite you, sir, for your initial comments. We are the group of people from North America at present. Kindly yours. We'd like to hear.
I was listening to both of you with great attention. See, this issue of depression and suicide, there is a strong debate going on even today. Is suicide a mental health problem or a social problem? There is a group who very strongly believes there are important social issues which leads to suicide, which is quite apparent if we look at world statistics of suicide from country to country. There are countries where there is a very low suicide rate. There are countries where there is very high suicide rate. So it can't be that these countries have more depression and those have less depression. The social structure of the country as well as many other factors decides that. For instance, I tell you, Soviet Russia and its earlier states which have become new countries have almost highest suicide rate in the world today. On the contrary, almost all Muslim countries, Islamic countries, have suicide rates which are around 6% or below. So, social disorganization in the country, poor security systems, poor social security, poor medical health, all these things affect suicide rates. So whenever we want to think of mental health issues, are of course very important. 70 to 80% suicide would have mental health issues, but and that 20% may have no mental illness. That also you must accept. And when we come to students, the issues are almost very different. Even few days back, one student in IIT Bombay committed suicide a couple of days back. He was from OBC or backward class. And they felt he committed suicide because somebody asked him, what was your JEE rank? So his JEE rank was low. That could be a trigger, that cannot be a cause. But that is being mainly emphasized as a cause. And that is where we have to be very careful. What causes suicide is not one factor. Suicide is a long drawn out decision by an individual, and when he feels the life in the current state is not feasible, and for me it is better to die, and then this person decides to commit suicide. But as both of you said, it's highly preventable. It's a momentary decision. If somehow we could avoid this, we can always
Hmm.
avoid many suicides. Not all, but many suicides can be avoided by intervention, early detection, and proper.
Thank you. Nice. Very nice. The social issue one was a new point. Didn't know about that part. 80-20 that you presented about those as a social issue versus mental health issue. We just exclusively assumed that's the only.
So can we go on to now it's time, so we'll take a minute break and we'll reassemble or continue
Sure.
because 6 o'clock we start the function, and I hope this
Sure.
Dr. Devedi, is that okay? Now you will take up the role of.
Absolutely, sir. Please go ahead.
Monica mail.